we talk about Bob Dylan?
Let's talk about Bob Dylan. Yes. Infidels. I've left the CD in the kitchen. I've got the CD, you know what it looks like. It's a picture of Bob Dylan.
With sunglasses on.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, let's do this. There is a cool bit of trivia coming up. I'll save that until after we've talked about what we think of the album. So this is 1983. So this really is old Bob Dylan, who isn't supposed to make good albums anymore. I think actually that was a better idea for a review than just doing 60s albums where we'd say Bob Dylan was very good in the 60s, you know. This is probably more interesting, you know. Maybe people will dip into it, maybe not listen to the whole thing, maybe, but they'll dip into it as a result, and it's interesting, you know. This is his 22nd album. He made a lot, and a lot of it was crap. At one point, he converted to Christianity and made 3 albums under that umbrella. That's the expression I'm going to use. Does that sound respectful enough? Yes. Yeah. Okay, good. The first thing that strikes you about this one is him coming out of that period. The 80s-ness. It just sounds really 80s. It's 83, you know. And, well, what's really struck me, because it wasn't long ago we did Radio Chaos. It does sound a lot like Radio Chaos. And these songs are better songs than the Radio Chaos songs. But that's what Roger Waters was going for. I get it now. That's why he thought it was okay to be 80s-ness, because he wants to be Bob Dylan. So, some nice, albeit tinny sounding songs, some nice guitar, courtesy of Mark Knopfler, and Mick Taylor, who's the other Stones guitarist, the 70s one. And later period Dylan with his dodgy voice, which probably suits the songs, and it's all glossed over in 80s production, so it's, you know, so definitely a successful move into the 80s, nice tasteful organ, and you know, it's produced by Mark Knopfler, so it's that niceness, and he hasn't exercised, pun intended, the religious bits entirely. And he does get kind of political. He's not raging against the machine, but he does get political. So that's probably what he should be doing. So on the downside, it's really 80s if you can get past it. Some of the chord progressions sound mysteriously Knopfler-like. And that's cool. It's an alternative to what he was doing before. It's Bob Dylan in the 80s, you know. I like it. But it'll probably go on the shelf and never be listened to again.
And that's our Bob Dylan review.
There you go. Yep, see you next week.
And when you said your trivia, you were going to say it's left review. I thought it was going to be about Mark Knopfler.
Oh, no.
Producer and stuff like that.
Yeah. It is about the production, but it's better than that.
Is it who he approached to potentially be?
Yeah.
Say again?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I won't mention that then. I think basically on the previous couple of albums we've had something to say musically about it, about the instrumentation and the way it's sort of played and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't feel we can say that about this. I think it's actually...
Well, other than Mark Knopfler. Just say that.
It's just quite bland.
Yeah.
Apart from that, there's still that sort of rushed feeling, which I think apparently had some agreement with... is it RCA? I can't remember who the label were. That he had to deliver the song in a certain period of time. Yeah. And I don't know if he put that in, you know, whether he willingly went into that, give it that Bob Dylan sort of just put together on the cuffs type feeling, because there was still that thing of change things at the last minute. Apparently he would, the session musicians who were there, if you went to the toilet or something, he wouldn't wait for you to come back, he'd just start recording. If that's the one he liked, that's the one that ended up on the record and stuff like that. Knopfler was quite scathing about the mixing of the songs, because he didn't get to mix all of them, I don't think. He had to go away on tour.
Right.
And he said it would have sounded a lot better if he'd actually managed to mix some of them.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was the most interesting thing about this album for me, was the fact that Mark Knopfler was involved.
Yeah.
Because it made me think, because the other people he approached were big deals sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, was Mark Knopfler on that sort of level at that time? I mean, Dire Straits were big.
So
I mean,
Love Over Gold.
Massive.
That's the thing, not quite. They're about to be. but not quite.
Yeah, okay. It just it strikes me as odd that he settled on him. I know Knopfler has an ear for sort of like American music, so he probably kind of likes the Bob Dylan type thing. You think the Notting Hillbillies sort of thing he did after Dire Straits. That's very sort of traditional American music. It's not like pretend American music, if you know what I mean. It's not sort of like the British doing
the blues,
American music. It's American music. It's sort of so maybe there was that appeal there. But apart from that, musically, it's just bland. There's nothing really to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's why he went for Mark Knopfler. That's what he wanted. He recognised that blandness of tradition.
That means that the only thing to really talk about is the sort of subject of what he's singing about. And there's sort of like, as you say, some political stuff on there. Some of it is quite political, like Neighbourhood Bully is really quite...
Yeah, it's that subject that you never go
to. You don't go there. Yeah. I mean, that's something that could maybe divide his fans. I don't know, because he's just come out of the Christian period, I think.
Yeah.
It's widely referred to. Maybe a lot of his fans fall on that side. I don't know. But it seems to be a subject that does split people.
Yeah, obviously. Probably more than anything.
But it's not overtly religious. There are criticisms of religious in there, and probably more to do with the trappings of religion than than actually being religious.
Exactly.
Itself.
Yeah.
There's also sort of alienation of being famous, which it's a bit of there's a bit of a contradiction there. The Christian period wasn't particularly successful for him.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's sort of, and this is sort of like a rebirth.
Yeah.
But if you're sick of fame and you're sick of the portrayal of you, as opposed to the real you, why are you chasing it? Why are you making your 20-second album? Maybe you don't need to make your 20-second album. You know, maybe you could just get on with whatever you really want to do.
Yeah, I mean, this is a sellout album. This is his 80s sellout album. You know, that's why he got Mark Knopfler, and it was a big hit. It was his commercial return. Loads of singles.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, that's all interesting stuff. It all seems very self-centered, though. It's all, when we say like Pink Floyd, for example, they do these incredibly personal albums. Wish You Were Here, for example, which is about their relationship with Sid or whatever. Then you got Dark Side of the Moon, which is incredibly broad.
Exactly, they would alternate between broad and personal. Yeah.
Bob Dylan, it just seems to be about his life at that time, which I suppose is a poet. Well, no, poets. You do
Not
get
necessarily.
Poets who take on bigger subjects than themselves.
Mm.
It just makes it a little bit like, okay, why should I do it? I mean, unless what he's going through speaks particularly to you, then surely the album's going to be it's going to fall a little bit flat. Maybe, I don't know. I thought it was a decent album. It was all right, but it's not that what we had with Blood on the Tracks and Highway
61
Revisited.
Yeah.
There was that, wow, actually, I should have listened to this before. I should have paid more attention to it. I'm not getting that with this at all.
No, and I think you're right, and I think that's...
And it's not an 80s thing, you know. We're quite harsh on 80s stuff. Yeah. I don't think this is an 80s thing. I think it is genuinely, the album is a bit meh.
Yeah, exactly that. I agree. Yeah, I don't think we would get any further than that with it. Mm-hmm. But I liked it. I enjoyed it. You know? Frank Zappa. We have to talk about Frank Zappa. So this is just after... It must have been not long after the 82 tour finished, which was a fantastic tour, musically, and was a horrible experience. And the last show was where there were... I think the audience was throwing firecrackers on the stage. And Frank said, right, next person to throw a firecracker, concert's over. So obviously, pricks being pricks, somebody threw one, and he said, that's it, house lights, concert's over, that was the end of the tour. So, I mean, that's the... Zappa's really into his embittered sarcasm period at this point, you know, and he wouldn't tour again till 84. and then 88, and then that was it. But I think he approached him because he knows the 60s. Because remember, there's the problem with Bob Dylan. He's so associated with the 60s, and I don't think he quite gets what that is, and how that's linked with what he did. And he, you get the impression that he'd lost what that was. He doesn't even know how he did it, kind of thing, And so maybe that was because obviously Frank isn't, a druggy hippie who remembers. Oh, it was amazing. He documented what really happened in the 60s, So in that sense, he's the perfect person to understand what Bob Dylan should be doing. So that makes sense to me. It is also interesting that obviously he's really, really anti the establishment of religion. Not anti. I don't think he's really ever been anti-personal religion, but he was really obviously taxed the churches, and that's really interesting. But it does fit with some of the lyrics on the album, and maybe that was Bob Dylan's experience of doing religious albums, was that he was getting sucked into all that stuff. So I think that's interesting as well. I mean, it's a funny story that he just turned up at his gates, kind of thing. So Bob Dylan knew where he lived, came to his gates, and obviously he's got a camera and a buzzer thing, and he looks on the camera and it's Bob Dylan, and he comes and
what do you want?
Yeah. So he let him in, and they had a chat, and he asked him about producing, but obviously nothing ever happened. And also,
was there ever any chance that Zappa would do that?
I think he would have done. Yeah, I think he would have seen the commercial usefulness of doing it, and probably found it quite interesting to work with someone from the same era as him, who is very different.
But I mean, Zappa's used to having
ninjas,
so much control,
and so and
ninjas,
yeah.
And a Bob Dylan record is not like that.
Yeah,
it's sort of
it's
very haphazard. Yeah. Get it on, and that's it.
Yeah, I think he would have found that interesting. I think Frank could have turned himself off in that sense. In that, that his sort of real draconian harshness is always applied to his own music. This is what I want. It's kind of like he wasn't necessarily like that in real life. I think maybe, yeah. But yeah, he also contacted Bowie, who isn't a producer. Did he ever produce anything? And Elvis Costello.
Yeah, Elvis Costello. That was a weird one, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Bowie obviously is so 70s. He was in the 60s, but.
Elvis Costello was heavily influenced by Bob Dylan, wasn't he?
Must have been. I assume so, yeah. He must be like a massive Dylan fan. Is he like a sort of 50s pastiche? Is there an element of that in him? I don't really know with anything.
Maybe, yeah.
He's called Elvis.
I thought it was kind of folky. I think, some of his songs may even sound very similar to Bob Dylan songs.
It's definitely that kind of thing, isn't it? It's the poetical thing. Yeah. So he was obviously thinking about, how do I get out of this? How do I get back?
How do I get into the 80s, basically?
Yeah. But I mean, Let's Dance came out in 83, so I don't think he would have, that Bob Dylan would have been aware of that album unless it literally just came out. But if it just came out, Bowie wouldn't have been available at all to even talk to. He would have been very busy, But he had done Scary Monsters, which is also an 80s thing with Ashes to Ashes. Funk to Funky, we know Major Tom's a junkie. Funk to Funky, we know Major Tom's a junkie. I put a little bit of the Young Ones in there. After me saying that. And it's... Oh, that's Terry Jones in the Graveyard.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. And he I think he nuts Rick into the grave. Yeah. So it should be said, I said Blood on the Tracks is what you would do if you did a Bob Dylan impression. So here his voice is worse than the Bob Dylan impression. Actually, but it's very glossed over because of the production. But it is that, and that's just what he sounds like since. I think the first track was the obvious single, but it wasn't actually the first single. It was like 5 singles or something. So it was a big hit, He also left some songs off. Apparently some of those are fantastic songs. So
what was that? I did listen to one. It's like a bluesy one. Apparently one of his best songs.
Yeah, I haven't heard them, but yeah, that's what people are saying. That actually the stuff he left off was better. So this is there you go. This is us reviewing Bob Dylan having lost his mojo, and he's still good.
He's still trying, yeah, and it's interesting. He's still trying to find it, even though he's sick of the fame thing.
Yeah. So that is interesting. Although this is a good one, they're not all good ones, but that's fine. And I mean, obviously, what we're interested in really is this is 83. 87 was is it 87? Travelling Wilburys. You know, and that's when he did. What did he? What bits does he sing in Handled with Care? Does he actually sing at all, or is he just in the background going, "Everybody, got somebody"?
It's all. It's a big O, isn't it?
Yeah. It's all about him. Yeah, and then George Harrison makes sure he gets his verses in, so it's him. But really, it's just about Roy Orbison, because it is.
I mean, that's got to be pretty intimidating, isn't it? You got Roy Orbison
singing, and and you can't really sing at all. So yeah, that's Bob Dylan.
We've done it now.
We've finished. It's I'm going to say 3 eggs actually. I did enjoy it.
Yeah,
So
it was okay. I mean, they're good songs. I mean, there's nothing particularly
nothing offensive
on there.
Yeah, but the blandness, for some people, that blandness is pleasant and nice. You know, for me, the blandness is slightly annoying.
Maybe if it had been a bit more upbeat in places, it might have been a bit better. I don't know. It definitely felt a little bit. I don't know, lacking of energy. Maybe.
I mean, it is that thing of people becoming famous when they're so young, and they've latched onto something amazing when they're so young. There's a video of him playing. It's like 63 of him playing "Hey Mr. Tambourine Man." He's just a kid, and he's written that. He's already written all this.
Completely not really related, but I watched a Michael Owen video, and you won't know this, Kev, but Michael Owen was a footballer.
Another name.
Probably one of the most gifted footballers this country's ever produced. He burst onto the scene as a Liverpool youth. He sort of like wrecked the international scene up until senior level, and then he played a few games in the reserves for Liverpool, and then he came on and he just couldn't stop scoring. He played in the World Cup for England, and he scored this amazing goal against Argentina. And it culminated in moving to Real Madrid, sort of thing. And then he started getting injuries and stuff like that. And it sort of, the second half of his career never really sort of lived up to the first half. But he was talking about his attitude at the time. He says, when I was young, I'd just go out. I just knew I could do it, and I'd do it. So that goal I scored against Argentina, later on in my career, it wouldn't even enter my mind to attempt it.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. He says, what you're doing is you're sort of, once you're at the top, all you're thinking about is people taking that place off you.
Exactly.
And it brings pressure.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Whereas when he first come on the scene, he was playing without any pressure. He just had to go out there and score goals, and he would. I should imagine it's the same for Bob Dylan, you know. He's sort of got a reputation to maintain, and he's actually gripped by fear of losing that reputation.
Yes.
Even though he's really sick of the things that come with it.
Yeah, he doesn't actually believe what people said about him in the 60s. He doesn't actually believe it himself. He shouldn't have called himself Dylan, really.
He doesn't want to lose it.
Yeah, obviously.
That wasn't me, but I don't want to lose it.
Yeah, I don't believe it, but it's fine. I'll keep it. And the money, obviously. And that's what this album did. It got, whereas it's possible in the 60s he wouldn't have made that much money, but obviously this album would have made him, sorted for life, millionaire, etc.
There was we were watching, I don't know, some cookery program this morning, and Rick Astley was on there. How is Rick Astley still a thing? He did like 2 songs, didn't he?
Well, the reason he's still a thing is because of Rick Rolled. You know, so he's famous because he was bad, and it's one of them, isn't it? Really, because if Never Gonna Give You Up was good, Rick Rolled wouldn't have worked. It's because it's so bad, it's embarrassing. That's why it works. So you click on something, you think it's something else, and it's Rick Astley. But that means now, because of the internet, that means Rick Astley's like really famous.
Well, I just thought maybe he's absolutely loaded because he had a number one at the right time when number ones made him money.
Well, he wouldn't have written it. I assume not. I don't know.
No, but even so.
But now he would have been able, on the back of Rickrolled. He would have had, and live music came back at that moment.
That's mad.
He's probably toured probably quite big venues now, I would think. Or maybe they do like a package thing with
right. He was at a
Duran
festival and he got Mary Berry to play the drums. It looked like quite a big, I'm not sure which one it was, but it looked like quite a big festival. But yeah, I'm sure he plays big venues and stuff like that.
Yeah, he'll do the nostalgia circuit is a big thing.
When we went to watch Zappa, wasn't Rick Astley playing or something like that at the time?
Oh yeah, he was like playing the NIA or NEC or something.
Yeah.
It must have been the NIA because
it was Central Brum.
Because it wasn't when we came out or when we went in. There was just these people around, and they were not Zappa fans. People. They were they're Rick Astley fans. But if Rick Astley was dead, I'm not sure. It'd be terrible if he was dead. But if he would not be able to tour, they wouldn't do a hologram of Rick Astley. No one would care.
No, that's true. Someone will care, Kev.
Not enough people.
Not enough. No. Right then. It's 3:00.
Yep, and we have finished our Bob Dylan series. Thank you very much. We've got to decide what to do next week.